My name was Ahmad. I was a respected Islamic teacher, burdened by the weight of tradition. For years, I stood at the pulpit of our bustling mosque in London, guiding young minds through the verses of the Quran, preaching faith and discipline. But beneath that exterior, a storm raged within me, a deep, gnawing emptiness that no prayer could fill. I often found myself gazing out at the world, filled with questions that the doctrine couldn't answer. Then, everything changed in an instant. One fateful day, I left my classroom, unaware that a near-death experience awaited me, a journey into darkness that would illuminate my soul like never before. In that shadowy realm, I encountered a figure bathed in light, a presence that called me by name. Jesus, the one I had been taught to regard with suspicion, became the harbinger of my liberation, exposing the chains of control woven through my faith and showing me a deeper truth long hidden from my eyes. When I awoke, not only was my heart full of a newfound fire, but I was also branded a pariah, a traitor to my family, my community, my very essence. The path ahead was lined with stones of solitude and fear. My heart ached at the thought of losing my loved ones, yet a voice echoed within me, urging me to rise. It was a spiritual battle, a calling to share the truth I had received, despite the dangers that lay ahead. As I delved into the scriptures, seeking wisdom from both the Bible and the lives of others transformed by encounters like mine, I felt an unquenchable thirst for the light, one that urged me to gather the scattered seekers like myself. I'd experienced a divine commission, and now I had a purpose that transcended personal salvation, to guide others out of the murky waters of doubt and deception. Join me on this odyssey of faith and transformation. I urge you to engage in this revelation. Leave a comment below about where you're watching from and the time there. Your participation is vital in spreading this truth. And if you love Jesus, hit that subscribe button on Truth from Beyond, so you won't miss the unveiling of powerful stories and truths that could change your life forever. The journey of awakening isn't just for me, it's for all of us, and this is just the beginning. In the heart of London, where mosques coexist with Christian schools and hospitals, the air was thick with a sense of spiritual anticipation. My name is Idris, and as the Friday Khateeb preacher, I had always felt a deep responsibility to uplift my community and guide young Muslims seeking meaning in their lives. Yet behind the facade of respect for tradition, I noticed an unsettling restlessness among the youth. As they gathered each week, their eyes reflected a longing for something deeper, something that transcended the rituals we performed. It was in this atmosphere of tension and searching that I found myself grappling with my own doubts and desires. On one particularly meaningful Friday, just before I began my sermon, I closed my eyes and started to pray. I felt an all-consuming heaviness wash over me, a familiar wave of anxiety about the words I was about to share. As I sought divine guidance, darkness enveloped my mind. It felt as though the very essence of my being had detached from reality. I slipped into a trance-like state, an experience that would shift everything I believed. Suddenly, I found myself standing in a radiant light, an infinite expanse filled with warmth and comfort that replaced my fears with an overwhelming sense of peace. And there he was, Jesus, magnificent and glowing with an energy that bound my fragmented thoughts into clarity. Idris. He called, and I felt an indescribable connection with him, as though we were eternally intertwined. In that sacred moment, Jesus began to reveal deep truths that shook me to my core. He spoke of the spiritual war that envelops us all, a battle not just for individual souls, but for the very fabric of society. I was shown visions of the elite manipulating narratives, a hidden agenda designed to keep people distracted and divided, a tool for maintaining power and control. Each revelation pierced through the layers of confusion I'd carried, illuminating my path with undeniable clarity. As he spoke, I could feel the weight of the world's suffering pressing down on my heart. I witnessed families torn apart by misinformation, communities fragmented by fear, and the apathy born from relentless deception. The reality of what I was seeing was unsettling. It exposed the fragility of faith when it is distorted by those who seek to exploit it. I could hear the echoes of those young people I had spoken to, their questions about meaning and purpose, and I recognized that they too were fighting in this spiritual war, often unaware of the dangers lurking behind convenient beliefs. When I returned to my body, the world felt painfully ordinary. The bustle of the mosque and the anticipation of my sermon struck me with a new reality. Everything had changed. The revelation I received demanded action. I couldn't ignore the clarity of my encounter with Jesus and the urgent call to lead others through their own awakenings. I understood that the truths I had been shown were meant to be shared, even if it meant challenging the very foundation of the traditions we had built. The fear of rejection loomed large, but the mission to awaken my community burned fiercely within me. I was determined to shed light on the deceptions that cloud our existence, guiding others toward a deeper spiritual connection, the truth that can set us all free. As I prepared for another Friday sermon at the Islamic school where I teach, a profound sense of emptiness settled deep within me. My name is Ahmad, and at 32 years old, I often felt the heavy weight of expectations pressing down on me. On the surface, I was a respected educator, embodying the values and principles of our faith. Yet beneath that facade of religious obedience, a growing discontent simmered just out of sight. I knew the teachings. I delivered them passionately. But day after day, I felt increasingly disconnected from the spiritual truths I once held dear. In those quiet moments of reflection, I found myself questioning everything. The reactions of my students revealed their own struggles, young minds grappling with the very same expectations that burdened me. I watched them engage in discussions, but a part of me felt unable to connect with their passions. Instead, I stood behind my lectern, feeling like a ghost lost in the shadows of tradition. The emptiness gnawed at me, reminding me of a longing for connection that I couldn't quite articulate. These feelings intensified during my nightly prayers, where repetition felt more like a duty than a spiritual communion. Then came the dreams, visions that interrupted my nights and served as a constant reminder of the internal battle I faced. Each time I closed my eyes, I was enveloped in darkness, but soon that darkness was illuminated by a brilliant light. In the midst of this celestial radiance stood Jesus, gentle yet powerful. Ahmad. He called my name, and in that moment, everything in my world shifted. I felt overwhelmed by his presence, a flood of warmth engulfing my heart and dispelling the doubts that had long haunted me. It was as if he were breathing life into my weary spirit, urging me to delve deeper into the truths I had neglected. In the ensuing revelation, Jesus spoke to me about the spiritual war that permeates our lives, shedding light on the hidden agendas that often manipulate society. He revealed how the elite exploit faith to maintain control, fostering deception and division among communities. I witnessed visions of wars sparked by lies and misinformation, the consequences of which rippled through families and friendships. The emotional intensity of his message resonated through every ounce of my being, making it painfully clear how unaware many remain of the forces at play around us. This was not simply a personal journey. It was a profound awakening to the realities that bind us. When I returned to consciousness, the weight of what I had witnessed pressed heavily on my chest. I realized that my experience was not just meant for me. It was a calling to share the revelations that had the potential to awaken others. Yet the fear of facing backlash from my community loomed large over me, threatening the fragile sense of peace I had just discovered. Would my colleagues and family accept this newfound understanding, or would they reject me, casting me out for daring to unravel the beliefs they held sacred? The urgency to speak out against the deception that had kept so many in chains became undeniable. I knew that I had to embrace my role in this spiritual war, even if doing so meant risking everything I had known. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, but the truth I encountered compelled me to move forward, ready to illuminate the way for others yearning to break free from the darkness. During my daily prayers, a profound sense of emptiness settled in my heart, casting shadows over my spirit. My name is Ahmad, a Khateeb in London, and for years I've devoted myself to guiding my community in faith and tradition. Yet, despite my efforts, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing in my connection to God. It was during these moments of silence and reflection that doubts crept in, haunting me with questions I'd long kept buried. Was I merely going through the motions of faith, adhering to rigid teachings, without truly understanding their essence? As I continued to pray, I found myself searching for a deeper connection, an awakening that seemed just out of reach. The emptiness became a melancholic echo during my nightly prayers, where every supplication felt void of the spiritual resonance I craved. Soon, vivid dreams began to invade my nights. In these dreams, I was enveloped in brilliant lights and surrounded by loving figures who spoke to me in whispers of compassion. They urged me to seek the truth beyond the confines of tradition, to explore the revelations waiting for me. These encounters starkly contrasted with the hardened teachings of my upbringing, igniting a spark of curiosity in my heart. I knew I had to confront the truths I had been avoiding. One fateful night, the dreams took on an urgency that could not be ignored. I found myself transported to a luminous landscape, standing before Jesus, radiant and filled with grace. His presence was overwhelming, a divine love that wrapped around me like a warm embrace. "Ahmad," he called, and in that moment I felt a deep recognition beyond words. As he began to reveal the hidden agendas that manipulate our understanding of faith, I realized I was witnessing a revelation that bridged the gap between the sacred and the societal. Jesus opened my eyes to the spiritual war raging not just in my heart, but in the world around us. He unveiled the deceptions used by the elite to compel followers into complacency, exploiting fear and division. I was shown visions of how these forces twisted faith to maintain control, spreading misinformation to undermine genuine connections among people. The emotional intensity of this revelation shook me to my core, forcing me to grapple with the darker implications of my own beliefs. I understood that many, like myself, had unwittingly been part of this deception, and the weight of that truth filled me with urgency. When I finally awoke, the reality of my life in London felt drastically different. The light I had witnessed persisted in my mind, accompanied by the echoes of Jesus' words. My mission became painfully clear. I needed to share these revelations with my community, to awaken those trapped in the chains of ignorance. However, fear tightened its grip as I considered the backlash I might face. Would I be rejected by my family and peers for daring to challenge their beliefs? Would I be seen as a traitor or a fool? Yet, the call to action burned brighter than my fears, pushing me toward the understanding that true spiritual freedom could only be found through honesty and awareness. The journey ahead would demand courage, but I was ready to embrace it, illuminating the path for others still wandering in darkness. The day of the accident began like any other, but I had no idea my life was about to change forever. My name is Ahmad, a Khateeb in London, and I've spent years steeped in the teachings of Islam, enveloped in the routine of guiding my community through faith and tradition. However, as I navigated the streets, an overwhelming sense of unease clung to me, a warning I couldn't quite place. It wasn't until the crash, impacting metal, and the shattering of glass that everything faded to black. I slipped into a coma, and that's where my journey truly began. In the darkness of my unconsciousness, I found myself in a barren desert, disoriented and alone. The vastness mirrored my internal struggles, the emptiness I had felt growing within me long before the accident. Suddenly, the shadows began to shift, and I noticed a light shimmering in the distance. Drawn to it, I stumbled forward through the warm sands, my heart racing as the light grew brighter. It was there that I encountered him, Jesus, standing before me in radiant beauty. "Ahmad," he called, and instantly, I felt a deep connection, a pull toward the truth that had eluded me for so long. As he spoke, the revelations began to unfold like petals of a flower blooming in sunlight. Jesus revealed to me the hidden truths behind religions, laying bare the ways they had often been used as instruments of control by those in power, the elite who thrive on ignorance and division among people. I witnessed visions of societal manipulation, the spiritual war that rages silently in the hearts of men, and how a veil of deception obscures the beauty of genuine connection with the divine. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. It exposed the fractures and failings of the systems I had relied on for guidance. The emotions swirled within me as I absorbed these truths. I felt despair for the countless individuals trapped in cycles of fear and misunderstanding, bound by traditions that dictate their lives but fail to nurture their souls. I recognized that my own teachings had sometimes contributed to this deception, and that weighed heavily on my heart. Each moment spent in prayer felt tainted by the knowledge that many believed they were following the right path, blind to the influence of external forces manipulating their faith for their gain. I was witnessing the heartbreaking reality of countless lives caught in this spiritual war, and the urgency to share these insights began to ignite a fire within me. When I finally emerged from that coma, the hospital lights were blinding. The revelations from my time with Jesus lingered in my mind, urging me to act. I understood that returning to my old life while holding these truths would be an injustice, not only to myself, but to those still seeking liberation from the chains of deception. The fear of backlash from my family and community loomed over me, reminding me of what I stood to lose. Still, the thought of the awakening that lay ahead, of breaking the silence that stifled so many voices, filled me with purpose. I was prepared to confront the challenges, ready to share the truth I had witnessed, because in doing so, I'd step into my role as a messenger, committed to leading others toward the light of understanding. The path before me was filled with uncertainty, but I was determined to walk it, knowing that the pursuit of truth was the most vital journey of all. Upon awakening from my coma, I felt a whirlwind of emotions surge within me, each one louder than the last. My name is Ahmad, and the experience I had during that brief moment in the void forever altered my perspective on life and faith. The visions of Jesus and the profound truths he revealed echoed in my mind, demanding to be shared. I felt an intense passion rising within me, a calling to connect others with the truths that had been hidden, not only from my eyes, but from the eyes of countless others entangled in a spiritual war they did not even realize they were fighting. As soon as I began to speak about my experience, reality struck hard. The wrath of my family came crashing down upon me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like a complete outsider in my own home. My attempts to share the revelation of Jesus and the hidden agendas that manipulate our understanding of faith were met with anger and disbelief. To them, I was a traitor, someone who turned his back on the teachings that had shaped our lives for generations. The words felt like daggers, carried by those I loved most. The pain of their betrayal pierced deep, and I was left grappling with feelings of isolation and hurt. Facing my family, I was filled with guilt and sorrow. I could see the disappointment in their eyes, the anguish of watching a loved one stray from the path they had cherished. It tore at my heart as I tried to explain the newfound freedom I had found in Jesus. The spiritual awakening transformed my understanding of truth and pushed me further from the rigid traditions that felt increasingly suffocating. I yearned for their acceptance and the comfort of our shared past, but learned that such a longing could not outweigh my conviction. The deeper I dove into these revelations, the clearer it became that I had a responsibility, not just to myself, but to everyone trapped in the darkness of deception. Every day evolved into a struggle between my love for my family and my commitment to this new path. I continued to share my experiences with others, speaking of the deception often employed by those in power, the elite who manipulate belief systems for their benefit. I engaged with individuals seeking genuine understanding and witnessed the awakening spark in their eyes. With every conversation, I felt a sense of purpose deepen, while the echoes of my family's rejection reverberated hauntingly in my mind. I began to understand that my journey was not merely about me. It was about all those who had suffered under the weight of misinformation and control. As the tension mounted, I recognized that spiritual freedom requires not only courage, but also the willingness to embrace the unknown. Yes, I risked losing my familial ties, but I realized that to remain silent would be to deny the truth that burned within me, a truth that defies manipulation and seeks to unite rather than divide. With Jesus' teachings guiding me, I was driven to confront the realities around me boldly. I could no longer cower behind the traditions that I had once revered. Instead, I was determined to be a vessel for the very revelations that could lead others toward their own awakening. The path ahead was filled with uncertainty, but I understood that this journey was essential for my spirit and those still yearning for liberation from the chains of deception. After my encounter with Jesus, I felt a magnetic pull toward exploring the Bible, and I couldn't shake the need to understand what had happened to me on that fateful night. My name is Ahmad, and I am a Khateeb in London, navigating the complexities of faith while still grappling with doubts. As I turned to Scripture, I found solace in the words that spoke of love, salvation, and awakening. Each verse invited me deeper into a world I had only skimmed the surface of before, igniting my curiosity and further fueling my desire to uncover the truth. Stumbling upon videos and testimonies of others who had similar encounters felt like fate. I found myself mesmerized by their stories, connecting on a level that was both intimate and universal. Each narrative struck a chord within me, revealing the threads of a larger tapestry woven from shared experiences of discovery and divine intervention. This newfound community became a refuge, a place where I could express the fears and hopes that thrummed in my heart. We met in secret, away from prying eyes, grappling with the implications of our revelations and the spiritual war we were swept into unwittingly. However, joining this group also brought about a deepened sense of conflict. As I forged connections with individuals who understood my struggles, there lingered a weight of guilt tied to my past. The fear of losing everything I held dear, the respect of my family, the traditions that shaped my identity, loomed large. Each discussion about faith was a reminder of the battle within me. Would stepping into this new understanding mean abandoning the culture I was born into? Could I really walk away from years of familial and communal bonds for the sake of a truth that was so audacious? The tension grew as I navigated my dual existence. The more I shared my awakening with the support group, the more I feared the repercussions of those actions. Encounters with Jesus brought a profound revelation, but each step forward felt like a step away from the people who had been my foundation. I knew it was essential to confront these fears, the hidden agendas that kept us bound to a complacent existence. Yet the thought of rejection haunted me. Each revelation I gleaned from our meetings felt like a weapon in this spiritual war, empowering me to define my purpose, even when the cost seemed too high. But with every prayer, every shared story, I began to understand that this awakening wasn't solely about me. It was about all those who remained unaware of the influences that sought to steer us off course. I felt an undeniable call to action, compelled to speak the truth about the manipulations and deceptions that so many still lived under, including those closest to me. The mission ahead promised both challenges and enlightenment, leading me into the unknown. I knew I had to embrace the light I had found, standing firm against the waves of silence that attempted to drown out our voices, pushing forward into a future that not only entwined my journey, but also illuminated the paths for those still wandering in the shadows. Realizing the significance of my experience felt like stepping into a divine purpose that was beyond my understanding. My name is Ahmad, and as a Khateeb, I've dedicated my life to leading prayers and imparting wisdom to my community. For years, I upheld the teachings of our faith, immersing myself in tradition and the expectations that come with it. But after encountering Jesus during my near-death experience, everything shifted. I knew that what I had witnessed was not just for my benefit. It was a calling to testify, to share the truths I had uncovered, even at the risk of facing backlash from my traditional community. Each day, the weight of my revelation pressed on my heart. I could hardly contain the urgency to speak out against the hidden agendas manipulating lives. Each prayer and sermon I delivered began to feel inadequate in the face of the deeper truths that had been laid bare before me. I had seen the spiritual war that raged not just over my own soul but within my community and even beyond. The deception I had once accepted was now painfully clear. I could see how religious belief could be twisted to serve the interests of the elite, keeping people bound to fear and ignorance. This haunting realization spurred me into action. I had to find a way to communicate this awakening. Despite the fear that gripped me, I began to reach out to others who had also sought deeper meanings. I soon discovered pockets of support among those grappling with similar struggles. We shared our stories, and with each conversation I found comfort and a renewed sense of purpose. They too felt the pull toward awakening, recognizing the need to break free from the shackles that had long held them hostage. Yet the challenge was monumental. How do you convey such profound truths to those steeped in tradition, who might see my attempts as betrayal rather than enlightenment? In my quiet moments of reflection, I grappled with the tension between my love for my community and my desire to share what I had learned. My family, my friends, all were anchored in a faith that I now saw as intertwined with societal deception. The emotional conflict was intense. I often recalled Jesus' words, reminding me that truth can be a double-edged sword. It could liberate, but also divide. With every ounce of courage I could muster, I resolved to harness the truth I had discovered and transform it into a vessel for change. The commitment to speak out and share my experience began to crystallize into a mission. This spiritual awakening wasn't just about my journey. It was about empowering others to seek their truth and break free from manipulation. As I prepared to face the challenges ahead, I felt an unfamiliar strength rising within me. I knew that bringing awareness to the spiritual war would not be easy, but I was determined to lead others to the light that had illuminated my own path. I feared the rejection of my family and community, but the call to action was louder than the voice of doubt. The journey to share this truth was only just beginning, and I was ready to confront whatever awaited me on this uncharted path. In a symbolic act of courage, I made the decision to leave my home, a place heavy with years of tradition and expectation. My name is Ahmad, and as a Khateeb, I carried the responsibilities of my faith not just on my shoulders but deep within my heart. For years I believed I was fulfilling my duty by guiding my community through the teachings of Islam, but the awakening I experienced during my near-death encounter with Jesus turned my world upside down. The revelation I received shook the foundations of my beliefs, leading me to the realization that there was truth beyond the confines of what I had known. As I packed my belongings, I felt a mixture of fear and excitement coursing through me. Relocating to another city meant stepping into the unknown, but I recognized it as a necessary step toward embracing my new faith fully. The thought of starting fresh, free from the restraints of my past, fueled my determination. I felt a calling to evangelize, to share not just my story but to help others navigate their own spiritual uncertainties. The world was in turmoil, and I understood that the spiritual war was raging not only within individuals but also against the very fabric of society. In my new city, I found a community of seekers, individuals yearning for understanding and connection. They were disillusioned by the same hidden agendas I had once accepted as part of my reality. Together we formed bonds over our shared experiences and struggles, drawing strength from one another. I began to speak openly about the spiritual war we face, the manipulation of the elite, the deception employed to keep us divided and fearful. With every conversation, I felt a sense of urgency intensify within me. Each testimony I shared reinvigorated my purpose, reminding me of the importance of reaching out to those still trapped in confusion. Yet, the guilt of leaving my family behind haunted me. I wrestled with the fear of how they would view my departure from our traditions. The emotional turmoil was palpable. Could I truly abandon the community that raised me? Would they ever understand the depth of my awakening? I often replayed the moments we shared, the laughter and the love, but I felt compelled by a truth that burned brighter than my attachments. The revelations I received from Jesus were gifts meant to be shared, and keeping them to myself would be a betrayal to my calling. As I delved deeper into this mission, I witnessed transformations around me, lives discovering freedom and clarity in the truth I had once uncovered. The awakening wasn't just about my journey, it became a movement, a collective calling to rise against the deceptions that have held families and communities captive for too long. Each day I faced new challenges, navigating tensions between my desire for acceptance and my commitment to truth. I knew the path ahead would demand courage, but the love and understanding I encountered in this new chapter strengthened my resolve. I was no longer merely a witness to the spiritual war. I was an active participant, ready to shine a light into the darkness and guide others toward their own revelations. 5 years have passed since I took the leap into the unknown, stepping away from everything familiar in my life. My name is Ahmad, and now I find myself in a safe haven, leading a community that embodies hope and truth. This journey hasn't been without its challenges. Each step I've taken has required profound courage, as I've navigated the upheaval that followed my revelations. The experience I had with Jesus during my near-death moment forever transformed me, igniting a flame of passion within that I can no longer extinguish. As I sit in the light of this new community, I see faces that mirror my own struggles, individuals who have felt lost, caught in the throes of deception designed by those who wish to control. The lessons I learned during my encounter resonate deeply with the people I engage with. During countless gatherings, I share my story, weaving the threads of spiritual awakening with the realities that bind us. I explain how the spiritual war we face isn't just about personal battles, but encompasses the larger societal changes that must occur if we're to escape the hidden agendas of the elite. These discussions ignite something vital within them, and I witness the transformation as they awaken to the truth. At times, however, the memories of my past haunt me. I often think about my family, those I left behind, and the price of my newfound freedom. My heart aches for the connections that were severed, for the shared moments that now feel etched in glass, beautiful but fragile. I long for their understanding, a chance for reconciliation that feels increasingly distant. Yet I understand that my journey toward enlightenment has consequences that are both profound and painful. While I stand firm in my mission, the sense of solitude it sometimes brings leaves an imprint on my soul. Through the challenges, I also see the fruits of my labor. The number of people awakening to the spiritual truths I've shared continues to grow. Each testimony offers a glimpse into the healing process. As individuals break free from the chains of fear and misunderstanding, I see how these revelations ripple outward, affecting families, friendships, and communities. Our discussions often venture into the nature of deception that permeates our societies, and it becomes apparent that many are still entangled in its grasp, unaware of the forces manipulating their lives. As I continue to share my experiences, I'm reminded that truth often comes at a cost. The spiritual awakening isn't merely a personal journey. It's a ripple that spreads through the fabric of society, challenging norms and encouraging others to question the world around them. I stand at the forefront of a movement that seeks to dismantle the barriers built by ignorance and fear. While the future remains uncertain, I am resolute in my calling to enlighten others, to guide them out of the darkness I once knew. Every encounter, every moment of connection, serves as a reminder that we are all in this spiritual war together, striving for freedom and truth in a world desperate for awakening. The truth liberates, or so I've come to understand, yet that liberation often comes shackled to a heavy cost. My name is Ahmad, and for years I served as a Khateeb in London, guiding my community through the teachings of Islam, adhering to traditions as a testament of my faith. But as my health began to decline, my once firm grip on those traditions started to weaken. It was during a particularly fraught moment of prayer that everything shattered. I collapsed, slipping into a coma that would take me far beyond the confines of my understanding. In that dark void of unconsciousness, I found myself in a scene that feels surreal even in my recollection. I was transported to a vast, boundless desert, filled with shadows that danced like whispers taunting me. And then he appeared. Jesus, emanating light and love that wrapped around me like a warm embrace. Ahmad, he called softly, and in that moment I realized I was not just a Qadi. I was a seeker, thirsting for truth beyond the walls I had built around my heart. As we conversed, he began to reveal the complexities of the world I had long accepted. Hidden agendas crafted by the elite, systems designed to keep masses under control through careful deception. Jesus showed me the intricacies of the spiritual war playing out in our lives, the manipulation of belief systems that distort the very essence of faith. I witnessed how leaders use fear to fuel division, creating walls between communities while masking their true intentions. The understanding of the hidden agendas that govern society awakened a deep sense of urgency within me. I understood that my own teachings had sometimes perpetuated this cycle, and the weight of that realization burdened me. The truth was both liberating and isolating, giving me insight but also revealing the cracks in my identity that I had long covered. As I eventually emerged from the depths of my coma, the revelations burned brightly in my consciousness, but they came at a price. I knew that sharing this truth was essential, yet the weight of the oppressive traditions surrounding me loomed large. I feared the backlash from those I loved, wondering how they might react to what I discovered. It was a painful truth that I was beginning to unravel one thread at a time. The difficulties of breaking free from the chains of expectation and tradition echoed in my mind, but I also felt this overwhelming urge to challenge the shadows. I had seen the light that lay behind the veil of deception, and I could no longer remain silent. Facing my community now felt like standing on a battlefield where every word I might speak was a risk. Yet the desire to liberate others from the grips of misunderstanding and conformity pushed me to move forward. The emotional tension within me reached a peak. Memories of my past mingled with the promise of spiritual awakening, a journey fueled by the desire for unity and truth that transcends our differences. I knew there was no turning back. My mission was clear. I was prepared to confront the challenges ahead, to embrace the spiritual war with courage, knowing that the truth of Jesus could shine through the darkness, offering hope and liberation to those still lost in it. As I stand here today, reflecting on the profound journey that led me from uncertainty to illuminated truth, I urge you to take a moment and ask yourself, have you ever felt an echo of the divine calling out to you, nudging you to question the dogmas that have shaped your life? The unseen strings tying our lives together are woven with immense purpose, and we are all part of a much larger tapestry of spiritual awakening. My experience with Jesus transformed not just my understanding of faith, but also ignited a fire within me to share that truth with others who find themselves lost in the shadows. The shadows of manipulation, fear, and division are strong, but they can be dispelled by the sheer light of revelation, the kind you might not yet have fully grasped. And that light, my friends, is as close to you as a prayer. A simple yearning to seek what lies beyond the surface of accepted beliefs. I want to hear from you now. Have you ever had a moment that made you rethink everything you believed? Share your experiences in the comments below. Your reflections matter more than you can imagine, and they weave into this narrative of awakening. Remember, you are not alone in this journey. Your voice could be the spark that ignites another's path to liberation. If this story resonates with you, please consider subscribing to Truth from Beyond and tapping the notification bell. The insights that lie ahead in our upcoming videos promise to deepen your understanding and challenge your perceptions in ways you have yet to experience. It's critical we keep this conversation alive, as each truth shared is a step toward collective freedom. Thank you for being part of this vital dialogue. I'm Ahmad, your guide on this journey of exploration and revelation. Remember, the quest for truth is not just a solitary path. It beckons us all toward a greater understanding of ourselves and the universe around us. Until next time, keep seeking that light, and know that every step taken toward honesty and clarity brings us closer together.